Okay, good evening, everybody. And first of all, very many thanks and indeed congratulations for still being on your feet at the end of another long day of what I'm sure are really interesting and substantive discussions at the Statistics Commission. I've really been enjoying over the last few days getting a flavour of some of the really important topics that you're talking about there, and thank you so much for choosing to spend at least part of your evening with us here. On behalf of myself, Claire Melamed, the CEO of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, and my co-partners in the Data for Now initiative, the World Bank, the UN Statistics Division, and SDSN Trends, very warm welcome to this event on Data for Now, which is focused on increasing the use of new data sources and techniques to increase the timeliness of data. And I think, we launched Data for Now in 2019 in this very room, in fact, with the UN Deputy Secretary General and many others, all very, very clear on the urgency and the need to increase the timeliness of data. And I think, of course, at that point, none of us knew what was coming. And none of us knew that by 2020 we would be in a very different world, but one in which the need to have up-to-date and inclusive data was all the more acute. And I think we've all recognized over the last few years the critical importance that accurate and timely data plays, not just in public policy, but in public health and in the relationship between citizens and their governments in times of great stress and difficulty. I think now, as we're coming out of the pandemic and starting to understand some of the lessons that it's taught us, we're realizing that much more is possible than perhaps we thought. That in times of crisis, we also saw extraordinary innovation, extraordinary experimentation, and I think it's really set us on a course to understand what is now possible in accelerating the timeliness of data, really ensuring that policymakers, that citizens, that anybody really who has a decision to make is equipped with the very best information that gives us a picture of the world as it is and not as it was. And I think this is the absolutely critical tool that we, as statisticians, as data scientists, as people who care about the information that's used for policy making, can bring to bear to help in the goal that we all set ourselves in 2015 to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So to hear tonight from some of the people who are leading that, from some of the innovators, from some of the people with experiences to share, to show us how to do it, let me welcome Grant Cameron, the Director of SDSN Trends. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire, and welcome everyone to tonight's run-up show. We hope you really like it. I think my name is Grant Cameron. I'm the Director of SDSN Trends, one of the core partners in the Data for Now initiative. That's me. And yeah, I'd just like to sort of say, I think what you're going to find tonight in this run-up show is something that very much parallels what we've seen in terms of the evolution of the UN Stats Commission over the last sort of 10 to 15 years. And it can be kind of summarized by words that start with three letters: C, I, and U. Not CIA, not CIA. And C is really, I think, a new sense of collaboration. I just say, well, we noticed yesterday that the UN Statistical Commission agreed to a new framework on citizen-generated data-related collaborations. We're seeing a lot more emphasis on collaboration across various types of entities now than we've ever seen in the past. I think we'll get a sense of that at tonight's show. The second thing, I, is innovation. Claire already mentioned innovation and the experimentation that came out of the pandemic. And clearly, I think this is really an initiative that's trying to sort of harness innovation where it can to create demonstration effects that it is really possible. And that's something that's very much in line with the UN Statistics Commission agenda. And finally, U is for user centricity. So I think that's something that's really been bred into the bone of this organization and this structure from its launch in 2019. And I think that's something that one can see paralleled through the entire kind of agenda that's now formalizing in the UN Stats Division, is this sort of like a blinding focus on user centricity. So as we go through the run of show, think CIU and see if we make good on our commitments and those things. And I will now, without further ado, pass the podium to my colleague from UN Stats Department, Ferial. Ferial, over to you. And thanks a lot. Enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Grant. If I can kindly request the countries to come on the stage, Senegal, Colombia, Tunisia, Morocco. And Kyrgyzstan, please. Just sit there. Yeah, this is fine. It's okay. Anywhere you like. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us today, and to the countries who've been working with us on the Data for Now initiative since its inception. Some countries, Colombia and Senegal, for example, have been part of the initiative since the inception and are at a much further stage of the life cycle of the work that we've been doing. And then we have countries such as Tunisia and Morocco who have joined the initiative in the fall of last year and at the very early stages. Just sharing a bit about the initiative approach, that we work with countries to first identify what are the areas, policy areas that are most important to countries, and keeping really countries at the center to see what the data gaps are. And then based on that, we work with the countries to help countries have the skill set to use innovative approaches to fill those data gaps, the priority policy area gaps that the countries have. So thank you to Norway, Italy, and the UK who have been supporting the work of UNSD to be able to implement and provide technical assistance to these countries. Really appreciate your support in enabling the vision of each of these countries to implement innovative approaches in modernizing the national statistical system. So thank you. I'll have my first question to Senegal, and Senegal has been part of the initiative since the inception. So if you can share how the Data for Now initiative has supported you in identifying the policy areas and then helping fill those data gaps required by decision makers to disseminating results. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bey Aboubakar, head of the National Statistic for Senegal. The Senegal has early on benefited from capacity building for all of the data producers in the country. We have a very decentralized national statistic organization with around 119 institutions producing data. Early on, with the help of Data for Now initiative, it was possible to gather all of those data producers to perform a data gap analysis, which help us identify the needs, the priority needs. And that's how two key indicators were selected, actually four, but the first two were indicator 2.3.1 and 2.3.2 in terms of volume of production per labor unit, and then the average revenue per small-scale food producers. We took advantage of the survey, the agricultural survey, to basically include elements that were gave us the opportunity to calculate those two indicators. And as of this evening, actually last week, those two indicators were published in the 2021-2022 survey, agricultural survey. that was performed by the department in charge of agricultural statistics. And so these are very key success, because without that initiative, we would not be able to calculate those two indicators. There are two other indicators that are under work currently, and next week is supposed to be validated with the national committee. It's indicator prevalence of undernourishment, and then the food insecurity 2.1.1 and 2.1.2. So data for now has been very helpful for the national statistical system for Senegal, in the sense that we will not only receive the capacity building, but there are 4 indicators that were successfully calculated, and obviously with the fact that all of these producers are now working together, we think that it's going to enhance our coverage of the overall SDG indicators.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and it has been a pleasure working with Senegal over the past few years. So thank you. I'll pass my next questions to Tunisia. And so Tunisia is currently in the process of developing its first NSDS. How do you think that the Data for Now initiative fits into Tunisia's vision for statistical development?
Thank you for this opportunity. So historically, I think Tunisia has a long tradition and practice of programming and planning statistical activities through 5-year statistical plan, which is prepared in parallel with the National Development Plan. So this task is monitored by the National Statistical Council, which is the institutional body where dialogue between users and producers is permanently conducted in this context. Indeed, we are actually currently preparing the first national strategy for the development of statistics in Tunisia, and we are particularly involved in this exercise since we are determined to reflect our vision as an institution, particularly through making emphasis on the usage of the new technologies and communication and information technology. So for Tunisia, I think the Data for Now initiative is seen as an opportunity to implement our vision in terms of upgrading, let me say, our business model, particularly in incorporating more and more relying on administrative sources and new technology to fill data gaps in some areas.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. So I'm going to, and just to mention that Tunisia is one of our new participating countries in the initiative, and we're currently working with them to identify the policy areas that we will be then supporting to fill the data gaps. My next question is for Nazira, who are in the much advanced stage of implementing innovative approaches, and where Kyrgyzstan used integrated geospatial and statistical information to estimate a few indicators. So Nazira, what are some of the challenges and your experience of using information from various sources? And do you wish to continue using this approach, or it's too difficult and you want to just let it be?
Thank you for your question, and good evening, everyone. And yes, I would like to share the experience of Kyrgyzstan, how we work with the geospatial data. But first, I would like to emphasize that National Statistical Committee is a key agency who is responsible for building monitoring and reporting system for SDG indicators. So within our responsibility, we have to build one system where all the SDG indicators will be disseminated and provided to our users. Of course, as for other countries, for Kyrgyzstan as well, the monitoring SDG is not so easy things because it's new challenges. We understand it, and because there are much more indicators, and within our work and within the monitoring SDG, we understand that we cannot produce SDG data only inside of statistical office. So our new challenges help us to understand that we need to use different data sources, and including administrative data, non-traditional data, and geospatial data. So to try to use new data sources, we decided to ask for help of Data Now initiatives to support us to get some capacity to understand how we can start, and is it possible or not to use geospatial data for SDG indicators. So as a first step, within our discussion with the Data for Now team and UNSD experts, we selected a few indicators which is more or less like simple to compare to others, and try to find some data. But it was very complicated, and I can explain why. The main problem, it's about communication between statistics and data owners of this geospatial data. Why? Because we are speaking in completely different language, to be honest, because they are geographists, we are statistics. And when we try to explain this simple things, as we think, like proportion or something like that, they didn't understand us. So it was really complicated to get. And before our workshop, which was held in 2020 in May, we didn't get any data because they couldn't understand what we want from them. And then, first day, during our workshop, we invited the owner of this data. It was land agency and water agency who use actually geospatial information systems, geospatial data for their own use. And the main problem, they don't produce any statistics data. Oh, sorry. So within our workshop, we try to teach our statistics how to use geospatial technology and help geographists to calculate the SDG indicators. So at the end, we had data. We found that in the Kyrgyzstan, we have geospatial data, which can be used for statistical purposes. So what we learned, that first, it's possible because within our workshop, it was only 3 days, we managed to calculate 2 SDG indicators. One of them is 9.11, another one 11.3.1. So we managed, we even present, and we in the SDG geospatial roadmap, we even have our case of Kyrgyzstan, how it was present. And another issues that we understand that we need to improve our communication with the administrative data providers, and who can provide us geospatial data. Even it can be just data, set of data, and then we can use some technology and get statistics data, like for SDG. And of course, capacity building, because it's the most important thing is to know, to learn statistics, to use the hospital technology, because without it, it's really complicated. And team. To be honest, we need team with a capacity who can learn and who will have some ambitions who want to learn to use new technology. It should be statistics and geographies together in one team. So it will be perfect, of course. And last things that we want, we are going to continue, of course, to work with the hospital data, just because we understand within the workshops that we have like raw data, hospital data, which can be used for SDG purposes. So as a first step, we are going to develop our roadmap on the national level and try to improve our capacity. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Nazira. I know you have a lot to share, and please feel free to reach out to Nazira. And if you have any further questions, and if you wish to integrate this into your national statistical systems as well. I'm going to ask my next question to Hasne from Tunisia. And Tunisia, Morocco, wrong country. Morocco, HCP, the National Statistical Office of Morocco, has set up a group of young experts who are working on innovative approaches, integrating innovative approaches. So my question to you is that how do you plan to utilize the resources from the Data for Now initiative to accelerate your vision to integrate innovative approaches and increase the use of innovative approaches to address the data needs for decision making?
Okay, thank you, Fariel. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to represent the High Commission for Planning of Morocco in this important panel discussion about achievements of Data for Now and a future direction. The High Commission for Planning has joined the Data for Now initiative, which allows not only to improve the coverage of SDGs indicators, but also to promote the use of innovative approaches and non-conventional data sources to calculate or estimate the missing indicators. Within the efforts to modernize our national system statistical and respond to the growing data need for policy making, HCP has established a big data team with the objective of conducting experimental investigation and piloted using innovative method to enlarge the coverage of data production. Some of those investigations are producing a CPI index using web scraping techniques, for example, or estimates poverty index and inequality using satellite images, or macroeconomic nowcasting using no traditional data, etc. In this regard, the Data for Now initiative can be a good opportunity to boost the work done within HCP by providing the needed technical assistance and mobilizing international experts to strengthen HCP's capacities to keep up with the START efforts. Furthermore, the HCP can also benefit and learn from the previous Data for Now experiences on how to overcome some challenges, some common challenges, like regarding the coordination with other ministries. For example, Data for Now initiative can be also ensure a thorough follow-up with the HCP team or some concrete exercise to lead the way for a large use of a new data solution. We are at the beginning of the project, as you said, and the HCP teams is motivated in order to success the Data for Now objectives, of course, with your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hasne. We met a couple of data scientists during our visit at HCP, and we saw some of the work, and we've also connected them with partners to see how they can learn from different experiences from countries to further publish the data for use in official statistics. My next question is to you, Piedad, from Colombia. So Colombia is one of the trailblazer countries for the Data for Now initiative, and we've worked very closely with you over the past couple of years in various sectors, education, using social media data for measuring perception indicators. Can you share how some of the data produced through this initiative has benefited the decision makers, how it has been used, and how do you further aim to use this moving forward?
Thank you for having me here. Well, Colombia is one of the most unequal in economic terms, in terms of poverty, countries in the world. Measured by Gini, is the second most unequal in the world. So we are only overcome by Brazil. So having data on poverty is really important for Colombia. So everyone uses it. When I say everyone, it's everyone. Economists, academicians, the public sector, all the programs that try to improve conditions in the country. It's also related to the conflict. So this is an information that is really important for many sectors in the world. So thanks to the help of Data for Now, we were able to produce a multidimensional poverty indicator, which are very complex to produce because they will need many data about it. But what was really interesting on this help that you provided for us was the technical advancement that we could do of merging geospatial data and the data that we had on our surveys and the censuses that allowed us to provide this indicator by very small areas, municipalities, which is very small towns could be measured with this indicator. So that was very useful. It is available in our website and is one of our most used indicator thanks to this help with Data for Now. So that also fulfills an SDG 1. We have many other examples. I will be briefly talk about one more, which is how much time take kids to walk to school, also in very different areas in the country, both in big cities, which are packed and jammed, but also in faraway places where there's no roads or transportation systems whatsoever. Again, with the help of technical assistance from Data for Now, we were able to produce this information using machine learning and other tools that really, really helped us.
Thank you so much, Piedad, for sharing those very concrete examples. I do want to mention that as part of this technical support that we provide through the Data for Now initiative, one of the key elements is also to strengthen the IT architecture of the National Statistical Offices to enable the use of innovative approaches. And with Colombia and Senegal, we have come much further into the process where in terms of having strengthened IT architecture. In Colombia's case, Colombia already had a vision, and we fed into their vision or fed into the activities that they had already planned. With Senegal, there was a lot of need in terms of strengthening the IT architecture. So if you could share your experience on how the streamlined IT architecture that you have has helped you in having better data or better access to data.
Yeah, I think Data for Now it's been very successful in terms of helping Senegal enlarge the coverage of SDGs, but as a byproduct, the IT platform was something that really was a much needed tool, but very successful because we, as I mentioned earlier, we have a very decentralized system, but the NSO has to put together all of those data produced by more than 100 institutions, and it was a nightmare because data will come from different formats, from different sources. With the Data for Now initiative, we were able to put together a central repository system, an IT platform that made it very seamless and make data producers to work together, interact with the platform, upload data with whatever format they have, but then the output is a unique format that is flat files that could be used by anybody, and also we were able to put together an analytical platform. Basically, we collect a lot of data. We really do, but those data were never put into use because, you know, once you produce data, you put it in a warehouse, but then no time to really use it. This platform is now allowing us not only to go very fast in terms of putting it into the repository, but we have a team that work together to basically mine the data and take out some of the analytical variables that are much needed. So the users don't have to go through the hassle. So very successful IT platform, which is being used at the moment by different users.
Thank you so much. So I have many more questions, but I'm going to stop here in the interest of time, and I'll pass it on to Davis for taking questions from the audience. Any questions you have from the speakers or myself here?
Thanks, Fael. I'll do this from here to make it quick. And in the spirit of CIA, no, it wasn't CIA. Collaboration, innovation, user centricity. Now we have participant centricity. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a few minutes to shoot any questions you may have to the country partners. Any takers? We have one over there. Thank you. Your name and question.
Hello, my name is June. Nice meeting you. Just one question I want to have is that I come from like a technical background and also kind of interested in, there's been a lot of discussions in the statistical community about using maybe differential privacy or the privacy preserving methodologies in consensus so that, you know, you might like maintain some sense of privacy even if in consensus or other like statistics that governments can collect. And I'm wondering, like, in your countries and your respective departments, if there's been any discussions on using these privacy-preserving technologies so that, you know, you could, like, maintain some sense of privacy in the data set that you collect.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Krista Baptista with Data2X. We focus on gender data across the data value chain and the ways that it's used, produced, and then applied in policymaking. So I'm curious if, and I really appreciate all of your presentations and the insights into how data is being used in new ways. I'm curious how gender data fits in with any of those activities, if it does, and what potential challenges you have faced or opportunities.
I'll take one last question. From Arif.
Thanks. Quick one, Arif Suleiman from the Islamic Development Bank. We've heard a lot of positive stories this evening. Is there, if you had to redo any of these things, especially Senegal and Colombia who have gone quite far down the road, anything you'd do differently?
Thank you. That's a brilliant question. Anything you do differently? From Arif, and then we have privacy-preserving technologies and factoring gender data. Any takers from the panel? Go for it. Thank you.
Actually, I want to respond the first two in just one answer, which is good for the timing. So today we're launching app Diversa. You can download it from DANE. And it's a way to collect data on gender identity. So we are doing that by respecting privacy, because it's fundamental to DANE. And we want to keep that. In Colombia, with high violence levels, you can imagine any of these surveys or censuses that could fall into the wrong hands is like huge mistake. So for Colombia, it's really important to keep this privacy super high. It has always been a high standard, and we want to preserve that. But these new technologies and using these intelligence and algorithms that allow us to predict some sort of probabilities are very interesting methodologies that our citizens push these days, and we want to take advantage of that. So we're using these new ways of doing things, which also kind of solves the third question as well. It's like we want to really appropriate new technologies, new ways of doing things, and new techniques that statistics and data science and all these new ideas are flowing in the air, and we want to appropriate those for the production of data in Colombia.
Yeah, go for it.
I will try to answer to the question related to the gender. Because in Kyrgyzstan nowadays we are try to develop the Geospatial portal where we are through which we are going to disseminate the census data. So of course when we will provide the census data, we will provide disaggregated data because it's one of the sources which provide us the most disaggregated data. So within this Geospatial portal, we will put gender-related data and another disaggregation. It's important for us. So.
Go for it, Bear.
Maybe on the privacy data, we deal with official statistic, and I think it's part of fundamental principle of statistic. But really, the privacy issue, I see it more on the alternative data, the data that are now being produced in the private sector, and it can be scary. You could predict, I see you laughing, you probably know what I'm talking about, because the data that's now being produced by text mining, whatever is going on social media, or the telco company, or the mobile banking, you can predict a lot of scary things. So I really return you the question, how do you handle that? Thank you.
What would you do differently? So if I could throw that to maybe Tunisia?
I think that would be more for Senegal or Colombia.
I think really the SDG has been a game changer in terms of how really we are connected now, how we are doing gender statistic, and so really we are doing things differently now because SDG has been there and is pushing us really to produce things that we thought we would not be producing, especially in the disaggregation of data. So good for all of us, good for the statistical community. Thanks.
And for Colombia, anything you do differently?
Yeah, well, I think we would have started this kind of collaboration with the civil society and academia way before. Like, it took us a long time to realize that it's a good alliance. So that's probably something that is very exciting for these new countries that are now starting this road. I think it's great because these are very exciting moments.
Fantastic. And with that, I would like to thank our panelists and our host. And move very quickly to the next segment, which is going to be moderated by Jiro from the World Bank.
It's working? Yes. Yes. good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm there. Gero Carletto from the data group at the World Bank. I have the easiest job, but the most complicated job. 15 minutes, so we have 3 videos, 3 presentations, and I cannot talk as much as I do. So therefore, I will try to do my best to keep it within the allotted time. So it's a way of introduction very quickly. So I don't know about you, but I'm astonished by the amount of work that is happening these days. I mean, if we taking COVID, putting COVID aside, before, if I think about the commissions 3-4 years ago, I think like there's been quite a quantum leap in terms of the innovation that's happening in countries, the way we have seen, and you're going to hear now the innovation that is happening outside, just in academia, in civil societies, so we're all in this kind of race. But one point that I like to make, which I think is important to this audience, is that we have a collective responsibility here to make sure that this race is equitable, that this race is in a way it benefits everyone, and it's from what I see personally, from where I stand, it's not always the case. And I think the role of partnerships like Data for Now or other coalitions, I think that's what we have to keep in mind. How we can make sure that this race to innovation is equitable, where it's accessible. Whether we talk about data methodologies, and so that means we have a full load, in terms of work, because that is not a simple task. Anyway, so as I said, I will try to minimize my talking. So I'm not sure who is the and people know me. I can talk, and then it's. But I don't know who is the technology master here. I think we're gonna hear, you're gonna watch 3 short videos, 3 short statements from 3 institutions. Will give you a little bit of a hint of the type of work, innovative work that they're doing. Then we'll go to the 3 presenters here. You have the names up there, so I will, for the sake of time, I will not repeat names and affiliations. And then if we have a little time, I will say one more word before I pass it on to Reidun from Norway. So videos, please. Or if not, I'll continue to talk. Yes.
As Capacity Development Lead, I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. Digital Africa is empowering countries in the continent to access analyst-ready data, to empower climate action and management of natural resources, and also working with different sectors from government, research, and civil society. The Digital Africa program is quite instrumental with the partnership we have, the global partnership for satellite development data, supporting the national statistics and the timely monitoring of SDGs. Closely, recently working with building the capacity of the Somalia NSO to use the Africa tools from agriculture, food security, water resources, management of their coastlines. It's quite useful, and the country is more empowered to actually access data that they couldn't have. So it's quite fast process to access data sets, and also collaborate with other departments to access ground information for validation. Digital Africa through Data for Now was able to be connected to other countries, such as supporting Rwanda national statistics in land cover mapping with FAO, and also Mozambique. This is part of the FAO hand-in-hand initiative program, and this will be piloted also to other countries. Earth observation is certainly making the life of NSOs quite easier, and also supporting other sectors. so that they're more prepared also for the national census, and also to provide useful information for their budgetary allocations on their different priorities. Digital Africa is able to work now closely with the different stakeholders, and the data for now will be a reality in this decade of action. Thank you so much, and wish you a fruitful workshop.
Are we going to the next
I work
one?
with colleagues from the National Administrative Department of Statistics of Colombia and the UNSD through the Data for Now initiative. Together, we built an AI-driven social media analysis framework to complement conventional public opinion surveys. Our framework automatically gathers public social media posts and comments and leverages cutting-edge natural language processing models to extract information on sentiment concerning different types of discrimination. We aim to develop a sustainable and scalable solution that would enable data-driven decision-making in the public sector with timely and actionable information. We also aim to develop a general capacity in natural language processing across the organization that could be applied flexibly in other areas as well. Finally, one of our primary goals was to promote the use of open source intelligence as a key component of the public information ecosystem. I eagerly look forward to continuing collaboration with colleagues from DANA to further enhance the framework we've built, and with colleagues from other countries as well who are pursuing similar innovative data-driven solutions in the public sector.
Many countries wish to better understand which crops farmers are growing and the quality of their harvests. Collecting information quickly and systematically on crop type and yield is difficult at scale across large agricultural zones and across many individual smallholder farmers. What if we could teach computer algorithms to identify crop types and estimate yield from satellite imagery based on what we know to be true on the ground from surveys? Researchers at Atlas AI, a machine learning company, are working together with the World Bank Living Standards Measurement Study to produce machine learning models for high-resolution crop area and crop yield estimation. Under the aegis of and with financial support from the 50 by 2030 Data Smart Agriculture Initiative, our goal is to demonstrate the value of this machine learning approach so that countries can deploy these techniques to produce insights about their own agricultural sectors. The better the ground data, the more likely are the models to produce accurate insights at scale. So we are also developing guidance on how country governments can collect and prepare ground data for use in training and validating machine learning models, so as to leverage these techniques repeatedly at scale.
You heard three very powerful examples of how data have been used in a quite innovative way, and I think one point which kind of comes across, has been coming across in this conversation, is how we maximize the impact of different data sources through proper integration. And I think that is something that requires a coordination both on the institutional side, but also in terms of technical methods and expertise. So, Eva. You're there, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about, your, so that's, I'm trying to save time with that. Would you like to tell us a little bit about, what the International Land Coalition has been up to?
Sure. Yes, I'm here. I'm up there and I'm here. Seeing some familiar faces after a long day of data talks. So yes, I'm representing the International Land Coalition. We're a coalition, a member-based coalition. We have members spanning from the World Bank to grassroots organizations across 84 countries. A number of these members are collecting data, and one of our elevated objectives, I'd say, something that's become really prominent and important across our membership in recent years, has been data, data collection, data use, data analysis for advocacy. So we've been focusing a lot on how across a diverse, broad coalition with some data collectors, a lot of land users, a lot of grassroots organizations, how do we reduce fragmentation across the data collection work being done? So we've arrived to a common set of indicators across 84 countries, which was no small task, looking at priority measures of land governance, people-centered land governance, and various aspects of that. To give a couple of concrete examples, we continue to look deeply at SDG indicator 142 on the proportion of land that is documented and the perceived security of the people living on that land. We are data inclusive, so we look at official data. We love, to work with official data gatherers to understand what's in that data, to help them collect data that's reflecting the diversity of our network. When there's not official data, we go to third-party data. So in the case of 142, I'll give a specific example of Colombian because we have colleagues from Colombia here. There was no official data available for 142. We did, however, know that there was third-party data through a world poll, Prindex. Some of you may know their perception, their survey data on perceptions and documentation. And that got us closer to what we wanted to know. In the rural parts of Colombia, how much of the population was reporting a document, and how well did that document respond to their perceived tenure security? So that data set got us closer. But we couldn't see collective tenure, we couldn't see community tenure, we couldn't see a lot of the populations that we wanted to target. So based on the SDGs, using the Prindex initiative, we built a module that would allow us at the community level to measure what those communities had in terms of documentation and in terms of the perception that they felt individually and collectively. So we're on different levels trying to identify the data that our members need, the data that they want to see themselves and their struggles, the challenges they're facing, and the data that they need to then take to advocacy spaces and to decision makers. And then we're trying to equip them to identify data that's available, understand it, be able to use it, and then generate data if we're not finding the data that we have. We've done this also with attacks on land and environmental defenders in the context of SDG 1610.1. I don't know if anyone from OHCHR is here, but the custodian. After I know, I'm indicator dropping because other people did it. Okay, where we had a working group of local data collectors where we worked to get their data in alignment with the SDG indicator that was tracking all violations against human rights defenders. Instead, we wanted to zoom in on land and environmental and indigenous defenders that we knew were being specifically targeted. So we took these data collectors, aligned their methodologies, and then were able to package that and enter into discussions with custodians and NSOs on their data around the same things. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Just a couple of words that I'd like to emphasize what you said. One is reduce fragmentation, which is a major issue when it comes to all the work that we're doing. It's how do we achieve, with reduce fragmentation, how we achieve scale in a lot of the work that you heard today, you will hear tomorrow, you heard yesterday. And the other one is another interesting point is use and reuse of data. Often we tend to, and again, as a data producer, I'm as responsible as anybody in this room, so that we tend to focus more on the collection, on the use, but not as much on the reuse of data. And that's also something that we should be more efficient. I will follow, although in the program it was inverted, I will follow the line and be careful because Aoi is keeping the time. So I would encourage you to stay within your allotted 3 minutes. I don't know what the consequences could be. Andrew? why don't you tell us, to me, I think this is what we heard also from Atlas AI, from other organizations, but also now Andrew is from the Earth Institute, to be renamed, apparently. So it's the power of leveraging academia in a lot of this work. And I think if we really want to harness innovation, we need to harness the brain powers in academia, which is, as you know, like, I mean, just since you've all been there, it's hard to harness. It's hard to push in one direction, individual academics, individual researchers. So I think, again, the kind of it's our role as international organization, as coalition, as partnerships, to ensure that. But Andrew, tell us.
Yeah, well, with those opportunities, I think, comes responsibility. And I think in my remarks, I'll touch on that. So, hi, everyone. I'm Andrew. I'm a climate scientist from Columbia University, from the Climate School.
Climate School.
And yes. So, first, I just want to say that as a climate scientist in this space, even 10 years ago, this would be a rare occasion. So I think it's an appreciation of the efforts such as Data for Now that we're creating the spaces to engage not only academia as a whole, but specifically climate and physical scientists. So I think that's an important point. So I have 3 points to make, and I'm going to tell a short story to make the first point and kind of the other two. So I am a climate scientist, but I operate at the intersection of science, policy, and practice. So a lot of my work is informing the humanitarian and disaster management sector on essentially how to access data, how to prioritize certain data sets, how to deprioritize other data sets. And a story that comes to mind is when I was supporting the Red Cross in 2015 in January in Malawi. If anybody knows what happened during that time, there were devastating floods in southeastern Africa. And I was supporting the Red Cross on a few flood management activities. And there was a time when there were many questions about where the floods were causing the most impact at a given point in time. And me as a scientist, I thought, well, you know, I could use my climate skills here. I know how to make maps. I know how to process data. I know how to layer socioeconomic data over physical data and create these sorts of impact maps. So, I mean, I'll do the best I can. And it was a complex situation where floods were happening, different types of floods were happening in different locations. But the bottom line is decisions had to be made of what resources to prioritize in different areas. So I remember being in the room of the National Society of the Red Cross in Malawi, and me thinking, me as a scientist, the questions I would get were going to be basically, can you make us a map? Or, yeah, please, can you make us a forecast? And really what the questions happened to be was, well, they opened this door, we went to the back room, and about 6 or 7 flood maps were on the wall. And the question quickly turned from, Andrew, help us produce more data, but rather, we have so many maps here, we don't know which one to trust. And this is something that has really shaped my career and my life, really, where it was a situation where there was too much data and too little time. Now, this is a space where academia can help. Columbia University is doing a lot of what we call fourth purpose work at the Climate School, which is acting at that intersection of science, policy, and practice. And this was an example of that. That's really what the skills that were needed at that time. But also, it was important for me as a scientist to realize the privilege that I have in that space. You know, what I said was not only about maps or about data, it was also going to lead to prioritization of certain communities, which meant deprioritization of other communities. So these stories really stuck with me, and it goes back to some of the functions where academia could really help. One of them is this translation piece, not only in translating data into use and into policy, but also in terms of translating what decision-making means back up towards the data developers. So this is towards the spirit of closing the gap between data availability and actual use of that data. In some contexts, especially disaster and humanitarian contexts, that gap can be significant, and many times, just trying to understand the mandates and the governance structures around the data takes a lot of time and effort, and it's a different question than understanding the quality of the data. And I think that's a big part of the work that I do in an academic sector in universities at the national level. I think this is a space where they could grow and act at that interface of science, policy, and practice, specific to enabling data to be used more effectively, ethically, to support the most underserved populations.
Thank you, Andrew. I think Talib has also an interesting story on Malawi, but you're not here for this, so you're going to be talking. You're going to be talking about something else. The Malawi floods, there will be another meeting. I think the story that Talib is going to tell, and again, full disclosure, I know Talib quite well, and it's about how we better use a lot of the private data and private infrastructure, and now we can leverage. And more than unleashing the power of private data, it's how we leash the power of private data for the common good. So, and I think there is some interesting applications, some work that we have been doing with Facebook, and kind of it puts a little bit things in perspective how we can use traditional data sources with social media data and social media platforms. Andrew, Talib.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, so Jared, thanks for the nice setup. So I'm here to talk a bit about our ongoing collaboration with Meta for the last few years, and much of that collaboration has had the data integration theme. So the basic idea is this. So many of you are perhaps users of Facebook. You're familiar with the Facebook platform. Facebook runs at any point in time quite sizable number of online surveys on its platforms. So some of those online surveys are thematically focused, and some are more around maybe the betterment of that particular platform. So in the case of Facebook, there is an interest in social impact. So then they are part of our development data partnership. So one of the ideas that we try to execute, which actually involved quite a bit of collaboration between our team at the World Bank, as well as their survey team at Facebook, to include overlapping questions in surveys that are implemented on the Facebook platform, in parallel with phone surveys that we were conducting at that time in response to COVID-19, to understand basically the extent to which populations that are surveyed on the Facebook platform can represent the general population, and to what extent we can actually leverage this overlapping information and through data integration techniques to basically derive more accurate, more representative insights by way of calibrating Facebook data. So that's the basic idea, and I think in theory, that all sounded really good, and the interests aligned really well. Right? We had this research interest and data interest, and on their side, they were very much driven by the social impact. But the plot thickened quite quickly. So in the case of Facebook, like many private sector entities, they are very much motivated and maybe demotivated by reputational risk. So many of the questions that you may find common to include in face-to-face surveys, they may deem not suitable for online surveys in Facebook, right? So that internal sensitivity calculus actually was never clear to us, but we did manage to include a whole bunch of questions that were overlapping between our phone surveys at the time in several countries and their online surveys in the context of two surveys. One is a COVID-19 impacts and trends study. Some of you may have answered those surveys on your Facebook platform. The other one was the Facebook equality, gender equality at home survey. So the gist of it is that obviously, as expected, Facebook population is older, they're more female, they're more male, they're more likely to be male, they're higher educated, and they're more likely to be involved in non-agricultural activities. So we can actually say that in empirical terms, vis-a-vis several low-income countries that we conducted general population representative phone surveys at the same time. By way of overlapping questions, actually we were trying to execute a range of calibration techniques, and the long story short, none of them really work well. So the issue is that obviously with the online surveys, much of what we may be concerned about is non-response, right? Ton of missing data that is manifesting itself in the data sets that we're working with, and obviously there are representation issues as well, right? So you're talking with Facebook users, and depending on the Facebook penetration in a given particular country, that it may actually cover a very limited share of the population. So sample calibration doesn't really work well for now, but because of the global coverage and the high frequency of these Facebook surveys, we're still hopeful that we can keep pushing this agenda to understand where and under what conditions we can actually manage to calibrate these samples for representative insights. So for us, our interest is how we can position ground data, household surveys to be more useful, to be more impactful, and to serve as a source of calibration and validation data sets to really gauge basically what is good from wrong. Because otherwise, without those insights, oftentimes, yeah, we can have large volumes of data, but they may be systematically biased. So,
sorry for the downer, like a presentation, but we're very optimistic. I mean, I think it's more about just to make the point, this is just to make the point that we want to make sure that how we use all available information, how we collect more and better information needs to take into account also the issue of, and it's always a trade-off, like we just said, so, and between, often a trade-off, I shouldn't say always a trade-off, often a trade-off between accuracy and timeliness. But at the same time, I don't think there should be such a strong trade-off. I mean, I think there is, we should collectively work towards making more of you can achieve a timeliness, but you can also achieve a better quality data. You can have a better quality data. And this is the work that we have. I can see as a big sign that says, please wrap. So I am wrapping right now. And I will give the floor to Raidun. Raidun will give us some broad comments on the initiative as one of the donors. Thank you. So should we stay here or do we go?
And now this one is on? Yeah. So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for having me as a representative from the donor side of this initiative. But even more than that, thanks for having us all put together in the same room for this evening, because this is a common initiative. So it's good to have us represented here as well. So Norway started funding the UNSC branch of Data for Now. And we started so by funding a position, and then we expanded our funding last year to include more activities to have more done. But not only this, because we also have a statistical capacity building program within NORAD, where we collaborate closely with Statistics Norway. And parts of our general funding with Statistics Norway is used for Data for Now. So in this way, Statistics Norway can contribute with their internal resources in the fields of, for example, geospatial information and administrative data. For us, the value of this setup is that the resources we spend can reinforce each other. And it's also a value for us that Statistics Norway can combine national capacity building programs that they do in certain countries with involvement in these broader international collaborations. So tonight, I've been asked to bring up a few features that we appreciate about the initiative. And I think I would start with a focus on capacity building while solving problems. So the goal isn't only to solve a problem, but to build capacity while doing so, so that the national institution itself can be capable of doing this work by themselves the next time. Another feature is the focus on innovation throughout the initiative, but not innovation for the sake of being innovative, but rather being innovative when needed and combining this with old-fashioned, well-tested solutions when we know that these work. Another one is from a meeting we had yesterday with some of the stakeholders in the initiative. We also heard from participating countries that the initiative contributed to strengthening the national statistical systems, and within that, the national statistical offices. And the working mode is one of the reasons for this, because as Data for Now can be a convener in bringing the different stakeholders within the country together, and by that enhance the collaboration between the agency and through that the role of the NSO. To us, it's also important that the priorities are identified by the countries themselves, including different relevant stakeholders, and that the work starts with mapping the needs of the country through their own political decisions and then lining up with a list of priorities. This might mean that it takes more time before any activity can start. And that is a drawback, of course. But hopefully it also means that the ownership and the commitment in the country is larger, which again is foundational to secure the sustainability. And luckily, I'm not so sure if you've seen that, but this is this is the central guiding principle of the initiative. So we all know that statistics is worthless if it's not being used. And here we appreciate the involvement of non-traditional partners, like civil society, academia, and private sector, because through them we can increase the demand for high quality and available statistics. But we can also expand the number of users, and by that increase the dissemination or help with the dissemination, and have a common approval of the data that is produced. And finally, we do see it as a value that both UNSD and Statistics Norway are engaged in the collaborative of administrative data that some of you probably have heard of throughout the last couple of days. I believe that Data for Now can and do benefit from some of the work that is being done in the collaborative, and that the two can build on each other. So how do we see as a donor the initiative Data for Now in the way forward? In our expanded agreement with UNSD, one of the things we agreed that they should focus more on is the South-South collaboration. For us, this is important when looking forward. It can create a domino effect where the money we spend once can actually create more results. It creates more champions, where the ones receiving the training one time are not only capable of doing the work for themselves in their own country, but are actually capable of providing training to others at a later stage. And this, of course, increases the pool of experts throughout the world for the future. Finally, there are innovative approaches involved in this work. And parts of the implementation is spent on finding and using new solutions. So we do want to stress the need for good documentation and good learning across countries and initiatives. We do need to be innovative, but you don't always have to be so to be innovative, because the innovation has already been done other places. So everything that is learned through the process should be made available to others. So I'm happy to see that both the disseminating training materials and approaches to other countries is highlighted in the plans for 2023.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you, Jero. I think you can finally leave your seats, if that's okay.
We can.
Ladies and gentlemen, we started with breakfast in the morning, and then when you're walking in, there were snacks. Now I'm informed there's sandwiches, but you can only grab them on the go. So make sure, as you walk out, you grab something to eat, and you'll also help us with the sustainability aspects. Now I'm going to hand over to Francesca, who's going to give us some closing remarks. And yeah, after that, ladies and gentlemen, we're grateful that you are here, and look forward to continued working with you. Welcome, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Davis. And okay, I think we're all tired and we want a sandwich, right? So I'll be short, but there are a few points that I would like to make. First of all, how impressive is the work that's been done, right? It's amazing. And it was only like 3.5 years ago, and we had COVID and a lot of crises in the middle when we were, as Claire reminded us, we were in this very room, and we launched the initiative. And we had big expectations. We're all very passionate about that. And I think what's been achieved somehow goes beyond what we expected. And I want to say, you know, this is a brand, Data for Now. But behind that brand and that name, the catchy name, there are very important principles. And they've all been respected by the countries, by all the partners, the work that's been done. Some were mentioned by a colleague from NORAD, the sense of ownership. Countries decide their priorities. But I also want to mention the sustainability. All these solutions are solutions that are not just tested just to try something new and different. It's something that can really be implemented, used, and can be scaled up. So that's also an important principle. And something that Babe mentioned, the fundamental principles. The NSO is still at the center of this work. So there is still the sense that you can bring all this data together. There's still data quality insurance behind the way we produce the data, and there still have to be data that are compliant with the fundamental principles, which for us statisticians is very important. So those are some of the good aspects that were really well beyond what we expected. There are some of the ideas that we had in the beginning didn't really materialize. For instance, I'm thinking, we were able to engage with academia, perhaps not to the extent we wanted. As Jerry was saying, it's always difficult. But we were not able to engage with the private sector as much as we thought we were going to. So those are things, aspects on which we still want to work. We have expressions of interest from partners, but we still have to work on that and try and engage with partners, especially from the private sector, that own some of those important solutions that can work with us in a more sort of systematic way, let's say, right? And offer those solutions. The other thing I want to say, where do we go from here, right? This is very good work. It's a very small group of countries. So where do we go from here, and how do we make this usable and also accessible to the other countries? I think we need to build a sort of a critical mass of solutions and ideas that can be shared and replicated in countries. So that's the idea of then scaling up and expanding this to as many countries as possible. Some of this work is already being shared, is available on the website. Some of the work done and the ideas and the solutions are available and can be shared. But I think we really have to move the next step. And of course, we need to engage with more partners, and we need funding, because all of this has been done with limited funding, I would say. And that leads me to the last point that I want to make. I know there have been a number of partners involved in this, but from our point of view at the UN Statistics Division, we really have to thank and recognize the contribution from the UK, FCDO, from the Italian government that has really given the opportunity to us to go the next step and expand the number of countries with whom we are working, and NORAD and Statistics Norway that have been with us over the last year and a half and have done tremendous work with us. So that's basically, what we have to do together, coming together with more partners, private sector, academia, civil society, and also bringing all these other work streams that we've been collectively developing over the last few years, the work on administrative data sources, the work that we just started on citizen-generated data. Those are all work streams that will eventually feed into the data for now and will allow countries to continue to innovate and continue to bring in these data solutions. Okay, so I'll stop here, and let me also thank Claire Melamed and her team and GPSDD for hosting this again. We've been here since this morning. So you're probably tired of us by now, so we'll leave the room. But thank you. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for being here with us so late. Thanks to the countries who share their experience, and thanks to all the partners again. Thank you. Oh, I think there are 2 more videos, right? No? Okay. No videos.
Algorithms of OPAL project. One of our priorities is to help national statistical systems and offices and other relevant stakeholders access and analyze so-called non-traditional data, such as data from telecom operators or social media data, to estimate and achieve the sustainable development goals. In Morocco, for example, we are working on a project with the government, UNDP, and private data providers to analyze water stress, access to water, as well as mental health amongst the youth. In Senegal, we're working with the government and other partners, including academic partners and civil society organizations such as IPAR, as well as a telecom provider, to analyze climate-induced migration and mitigation and adaptation strategies of affected communities. In both cases, these projects rely on an OPAL approach. OPAL is a sort of general purpose, privacy-preserving and participatory system to access and analyze sensitive data in ways that are privacy-preserving, so safe, sustainable, more inclusive, and predictable. In both cases also, these projects respond to national priorities and are largely nationally led and owned. We very much look forward to developing and deploying other projects with Data for Now and its partners in leveraging private data for sustainable development objectives in sustainable, ethical, and inclusive ways. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dilek Faisal. I'm a research scholar at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, and I'm also an SDSN Trends member. I've been involved in the Data for Now initiative as the coordinator of a project we implemented in Ghana. And our project was about addressing the data gap related to marine plastic litter in the country. Prior to our project, there were no official data available on the extent of the marine plastic problem in Ghana. I have worked with the Ghana Statistical Service, Ghana Environmental Protection Agency, UNEP, and other partners to integrate existing citizen science data on beach litter into Ghana's SDG monitoring mechanism. Thanks to this project, Ghana is now the first country to report on the SDG indicator plastic debris density using citizen science data. With this project, we were also able to demonstrate that citizen science data can be useful not only to address data gaps and needs, but it's also beneficial for ensuring a cost-effective, inclusive, and action-based monitoring systems. The results of this project will support the formulation of Ghana's integrated coastal and marine management policy. We are now continuing our work in Ghana to produce plastic litter density maps based on the results of our Data for Now project. Thank you very much.